The August sun beat down on the parched earth of Tonopah Junction, Nevada, in the summer of 1882, and Faye Thompson knew she was going to die if she did not find water soon. She stumbled through the dusty streets, her lips cracked and bleeding, her throat so dry it felt like swallowing glass. And when she saw the cattle trough outside the livery stable, she did not care any more about dignity or shame. She fell to her knees beside it, cupping the murky, algae-tinged water in her trembling hands and bringing it to her mouth with desperate gulps that made her stomach lurch. "Stop." The voice was firm but not harsh, and a strong hand caught her wrist before she could take another handful. "That water will make you sick." Faye looked up, squinting against the brilliant sunlight, and saw a man towering above her. He was tall and broad-shouldered, probably in his mid-20s, with dark hair that curled slightly beneath the brim of his weather-beaten hat. His eyes were a striking shade of green, and they looked at her with something she had not seen in a very long time, genuine concern. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need water." "I know." He released her wrist gently and reached for the canteen hanging from his belt. "But not that water. Here." He uncorked the canteen and held it to her lips. The water was clean and cool, and Faye drank greedily until he pulled it back. "Slow down," he said. "You will make yourself sick drinking too fast. Take small sips." She nodded, accepting the canteen when he handed it to her. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it, but she managed to take another careful sip. The man crouched beside her, studying her face with those intense green eyes. "How long since you have eaten?" Faye tried to remember. 2 days. 3. She had lost track somewhere on the long, terrible journey from Carson City. "I do not know." The man stood and offered his hand. "Come on, let me get you something to eat." "I do not have any money," Faye said, shame burning through her despite her desperate circumstances. "Did I ask for money?" He kept his hand extended, waiting patiently. After a moment, Faye took it. His palm was calloused and warm, and he pulled her to her feet with an easy strength that made her realize just how weak she had become. Her legs wobbled beneath her, and he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "I am Isaac Lawson," he said as he guided her across the street toward a small restaurant. "I own a ranch about 5 miles outside of town." "Faye Thompson," she managed to reply. Inside the restaurant, Isaac settled her into a chair near the back and ordered food without asking what she wanted. When the waitress brought bread and butter, Faye had to force herself to eat slowly, remembering his warning about making herself sick. Isaac watched her quietly, sipping coffee and waiting until she had taken the edge off her hunger before he spoke again. "Where are you coming from, Miss Thompson?" "Carson City," Faye said between bites of bread. "I was living there with my aunt and uncle after my parents died of fever last year. But my uncle, he started drinking heavily, and things got bad. Very bad. I had to leave." She did not elaborate, and Isaac did not push, though she saw understanding flicker in his eyes. The waitress brought plates of beef stew and potatoes, and Faye ate until her stomach ached pleasantly. For the first time in days, she felt almost human again. "What brought you to Tonopah Junction?" Isaac asked. "I was trying to get to California. I heard there were opportunities for women in San Francisco, respectable work in shops or as seamstresses. But my stagecoach fare only got me this far, and I thought I could find work here to earn enough for the rest of the journey." She looked down at her hands, dirty and blistered. "But no one wants to hire someone who looks like this." Isaac was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I need help at my ranch." Faye's head snapped up. "What?" "I have been managing alone since my sister got married and moved to Virginia City last spring. The house is falling apart. I can barely keep up with the cooking and cleaning, and I am spending more time on chores than on the actual ranch work." I need someone to help run the household and you need work. It seems like a fair arrangement. You do not even know me, Faye said cautiously. I could be a terrible housekeeper. Can you cook? Yes. Can you sew and mend? Yes. Can you keep a house clean and manage basic household accounts? I can. Isaac nodded. Then you are qualified. I will pay you $20 a month plus room and board. You will have your own room in the house, and I will respect your privacy. If you do not like the arrangement after a month, I will pay for your stagecoach fare to San Francisco myself. Faye stared at him, searching for the catch, for the ulterior motive that surely lurked beneath such generosity. But Isaac Lawson met her gaze steadily, his expression open and honest. Why would you do this for a stranger? She asked. Because someone helped me once when I needed it, he said simply. And because no one should have to drink from a cattle trough to survive. Tears pricked at Faye's eyes and she blinked them back quickly. Thank you, she whispered. Do not thank me yet, Isaac said with a slight smile. You have not seen the state of my kitchen. An hour later, Faye sat beside Isaac on the bench of his wagon as they headed out of town. She had cleaned up as best she could in the washroom at the restaurant, and Isaac had purchased her a new dress and bonnet from the general store, insisting it was an advance on her wages. The dress was simple calico in a soft blue that brought out her gray eyes, and wearing clean clothes made her feel like a different person entirely. The ranch appeared as they crested a small rise, and Faye felt her breath catch. The house was larger than she had expected, a sturdy structure of wood and stone with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Beyond it, she could see a barn, a corral where several horses grazed, and rolling hills covered in scrub brush and scattered pines. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still touched with snow despite the summer heat. It is beautiful, Faye said. Isaac looked pleased. My father built this place 20 years ago. He passed 5 years back and my mother followed him a year later. It has just been me and my sister since then, and now just me. He pulled the wagon up to the house and helped Faye down. Inside, she could see what he meant about the state of things. The main room was spacious and well built, with a stone fireplace and good furniture, but dust covered every surface. Dishes were piled in the kitchen, and she could see cobwebs in the corners. I am not much for housekeeping, Isaac admitted sheepishly. I can see that, Faye said, but she was smiling. For the first time in months, she felt something like hope stirring in her chest. Show me where everything is and I will get started. Not today, Isaac said firmly. Today you rest. You have been through enough. Tomorrow will be soon enough to begin work. He showed her to a bedroom on the ground floor, a pleasant room with a window overlooking the hills and a bed with a real mattress. There was a dresser, a washstand with a basin and pitcher, and even a small mirror on the wall. It was more than Faye had dared to hope for. The washroom is just down the hall, Isaac said. There is a pump in the kitchen for water. Help yourself to anything you need. I will be out checking on the stock, but I will be back before dark to start supper. I can make supper, Faye protested. Tomorrow, Isaac said again, and this time his voice was gentle but unyielding. Rest today, Miss Thompson. You have earned it. After he left, Faye sat on the edge of the bed and let the tears finally come. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of the overwhelming emotion of being treated with kindness after so much hardship. She cried until she had no tears left, and then she lay back on the bed, intending to rest for just a few minutes. When she woke, golden evening light was streaming through the window, and she could smell something cooking. She found Isaac in the kitchen, frying bacon in a large skillet. He had changed out of his dusty work clothes into clean trousers and a simple cotton shirt, and his dark hair was still damp from washing. I thought you were going to let me cook, Faye said from the doorway. Isaac turned, his face breaking into a warm smile. You were sleeping so soundly I did not want to wake you. Besides, I said I would make supper tonight. You are too kind, Mr. Lawson. Isaac, he corrected. If we are going to be living under the same roof, we should use first names, unless that makes you uncomfortable. No, Faye said quickly. I would prefer it, and you may call me Faye. They ate together at the kitchen table, and Isaac told her about the ranch. He raised horses primarily, breeding and training them for sale to ranchers and the occasional cavalry buyer. He also kept a small herd of cattle, mostly for his own use, and grew hay in the lower fields to feed the stock through winter. It was hard work, he admitted, but it was honest work and it was his. What about you? Isaac asked. What was your life like before? Faye hesitated, then decided he deserved honesty. My father was a school teacher in a small town in Oregon. We were not wealthy, but we were comfortable and happy. Then the fever came through 3 summers ago. It took my father first, then my mother a week later. I was 17 and had nowhere to go, so my mother's brother took me in. He and my aunt lived in Carson City, and at first it was fine. But then my uncle lost his job at the mine and started drinking. He became violent when he drank, and my aunt was too frightened to stand up to him. When he started looking at me in ways that made my skin crawl, I knew I had to leave. Isaac's jaw tightened. He did not hurt you, did he? No, Faye said quickly. I left before he had the chance. I took what little money I had saved and bought a stagecoach ticket. I thought anywhere had to be better than staying there. You were brave to leave. I was desperate, Faye corrected. There is a difference. I do not think so, Isaac said quietly. Bravery is doing what needs to be done even when you are terrified. That sounds like exactly what you did. Faye felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. She studied Isaac across the table, taking in his strong features and kind eyes. He was handsome, certainly, but it was more than that. There was a steadiness to him, a quiet strength that made her feel safe in a way she had not felt in a very long time. The next morning, Faye woke with the sunrise and set to work. She started in the kitchen, washing the mountain of dishes and scrubbing the surfaces until they gleamed. She found flour, sugar, and other basic supplies in the pantry and made biscuits and gravy for breakfast. When Isaac came in from the morning chores, his eyes widened at the spread on the table. You did not have to do all this, he said. You are paying me to keep house, Faye replied. That includes cooking proper meals. Over the following weeks, Faye transformed the ranch house. She cleaned every room from top to bottom, scrubbing floors and washing windows until the whole place sparkled. She mended Isaac's clothes, darned his socks, and even made new curtains for the main room from fabric she found in a trunk that had belonged to his mother. She cooked hearty meals that Isaac devoured with obvious appreciation, and she began keeping careful accounts of the household expenses in a ledger she found in the desk. Isaac, for his part, was unfailingly respectful and kind. He never entered her room without knocking, never made inappropriate comments or gestures, and always thanked her for her work. He often came in from the fields covered in dust and sweat, but he always cleaned up before sitting down to eat, and he insisted on helping with the dishes despite her protests that it was her job. They fell into an easy routine, and Faye found herself looking forward to the evenings when Isaac would come in and they would share supper together. He was good company, with a dry sense of humor and a wealth of stories about the ranch and the surrounding country. He told her about growing up here, about learning to ride and rope from his father, about the harsh winters and scorching summers, about the time a cougar got into the hen house, and the time his sister accidentally set the barn roof on fire trying to smoke out a wasp's nest. Faye found herself sharing stories too, memories of her childhood that she had not thought about in years. She told Isaac about learning to read in her father's schoolroom, about her mother's flower garden, about the way her parents had danced together in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. Talking about them hurt, but it was a good hurt, like pressing on a bruise to remind yourself it was healing. One evening in early September, Isaac came in from the fields looking troubled. Faye was rolling out pie crust at the kitchen table, and she looked up with concern. "What is wrong?" "There is a storm coming," Isaac said, moving to the window. "A bad one by the looks of those clouds. We might be in for some rough weather tonight." He was right. The storm hit just after dark, bringing lightning that split the sky and thunder that shook the house. Rain pounded against the roof and windows, and the wind howled like a living thing. Faye tried to sleep but kept startling awake at each crash of thunder. Finally, she gave up and wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, padding out to the main room. She found Isaac standing by the window watching the storm. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "Cannot sleep either?" he asked. "No," Faye admitted. "I keep thinking the roof is going to blow off." "It will not," Isaac assured her. "This house has weathered worse storms than this. My father built it to last." They stood together in the darkness, watching the lightning illuminate the landscape in brilliant flashes. Faye was intensely aware of Isaac's presence beside her, of the warmth radiating from his body and the solid strength of him. When a particularly loud clap of thunder made her jump, he reached out and took her hand without seeming to think about it. "It is all right," he said softly. "You are safe here." Faye looked up at him, and in the next flash of lightning, she saw something in his eyes that made her heart skip. He was looking at her the way a man looks at a woman he cares for, the way her father had looked at her mother. The realization sent a thrill through her that had nothing to do with the storm. "Isaac," she whispered. He seemed to realize he was still holding her hand and released it quickly, stepping back. "I apologize. That was inappropriate of me." "No," Faye said, surprising herself with her boldness. "It was not." They stood in the darkness for a long moment, the air between them charged with more than just the electricity of the storm. Then Isaac cleared his throat. "You should try to get some sleep," he said, his voice rough. "The storm will pass soon." Faye nodded, though she was not sure her racing heart would let her sleep now. She returned to her room but lay awake for a long time, thinking about the feel of Isaac's hand in hers and the look in his eyes. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the world washed clean by the rain. At breakfast, Isaac was quiet, and Faye wondered if he was regretting the moment they had shared. But as the days passed, she noticed subtle changes in the way he acted around her. He smiled more, lingered at the dinner table to talk long after the meal was finished, and sometimes she would catch him watching her with that same expression she had seen during the storm. Faye felt something growing inside her too, something warm and hopeful that she had not felt since before her parents died. She found herself taking extra care with her appearance, wearing her hair in softer styles and putting on her nicest dress, even for ordinary days. She baked Isaac's favorite foods and made sure his coffee was always hot when he came in from the morning chores. She told herself she was just being a good housekeeper, but she knew it was more than that. One afternoon in late September, Isaac came to find her in the kitchen where she was preserving the last of the garden vegetables for winter. "I need to ride into town for supplies," he said. "Would you like to come? You have been cooped up here for weeks. A change of scenery might be nice." Faye agreed eagerly, and an hour later they were riding together on the wagon bench, the horses trotting along the dusty road toward Tonopah Junction. It was a beautiful day, warm but not hot, with a breeze that carried the scent of sage and juniper. Isaac pointed out landmarks along the way. telling her about the history of the area and the other ranchers who lived nearby. In town, he introduced her to the shopkeepers and other townspeople they encountered, and Faye noticed with a warm flush that he introduced her simply as Faye, not as his housekeeper or hired help. The other women looked at her with curiosity and perhaps a touch of envy, which made Faye realize that Isaac Lawson was probably considered quite a catch in these parts. They were loading supplies into the wagon when a woman's voice called out, "Isaac Lawson, you had better not be planning to leave without saying hello to me." Faye turned to see a pretty blonde woman in an expensive dress hurrying toward them. She was probably in her early 20s, with a perfect complexion and the kind of figure that made men take notice. "Hello, Catherine," Isaac said, his tone polite but not particularly warm. "I heard you hired help," Catherine said, looking Faye up and down with an expression that was not quite friendly. "How nice for you." "Catherine Bennett, this is Faye Thompson," Isaac said. "Faye, Miss Bennett's father owns the largest ranch in the county." "How do you do?" Faye said, extending her hand. Catherine barely touched it before turning her attention back to Isaac. "You simply must come to the harvest dance next month, Isaac. Everyone will be there, and I know Daddy would love to talk to you about that horse trade you mentioned." "I will think about it," Isaac said noncommittally. "Bring your housekeeper if you like," Catherine added with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "I am sure the ranch hands would enjoy dancing with her." Faye felt her cheeks burn, but before she could respond, Isaac said coolly, "If Faye attends the dance, it will be as my guest, not as entertainment for the ranch hands. Now, if you will excuse us, we need to be getting back." He helped Faye onto the wagon bench with more care than necessary, and as they drove away, Faye could feel Catherine's eyes boring into her back. "I apologize for Catherine," Isaac said once they were out of town. "She has been trying to get me to court her for the past 2 years, and she does not take rejection well." "She is very beautiful," Faye said quietly. "I suppose so," Isaac replied, not sounding particularly interested. "But beauty without kindness is like a rose without fragrance. Looks pretty but not worth keeping." Faye glanced at him, and he met her eyes with a smile that made her heart flutter. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, Isaac said, "I meant what I told Catherine. If you would like to go to the harvest dance, I would be honored to take you as my guest." Faye felt a thrill run through her. "I would like that very much, but I do not have anything suitable to wear to a dance." "We will get you a new dress," Isaac said. "Consider it a bonus for all the hard work you have done around here." "Isaac, you do not need to do that. You already pay me more than fairly." "I want to," he said simply. "Besides, I would like to see the looks on everyone's faces when I walk in with the prettiest woman in the territory on my arm." Faye felt her cheeks grow warm. "You should not say things like that." "Why not if they are true?" She looked at him, and the expression on his face took her breath away. This was not just kindness or gratitude. This was something deeper, something that both thrilled and terrified her. "Isaac," she said softly, "what is happening here?" He was quiet for a long moment, then said, "I think you know, Faye. I think you have known for a while now, just like I have." "You are my employer," she said, though her heart was pounding. "It would not be proper." "Then I will fire you right now," Isaac said, a smile playing at his lips. "And then I will ask you to stay anyway, not as my housekeeper, but as someone I care for very much." "You barely know me," Faye protested weakly. "I know you are brave and strong. I know you are kind and hardworking. I know you have a good sense of humor, and that you sing while you cook, even though you think no one can hear you. I know the way your eyes light up when you laugh, and I know that having you here has made this house feel like a home again." He reached over and took her hand gently. I know that I think about you every moment I am out in the fields, and I look forward to coming home every evening more than I have looked forward to anything in years. Is that not enough to know? Faye felt tears prick her eyes. I was afraid it was just me, she whispered. I was afraid I was imagining that you might feel something too. You were not imagining anything, Isaac said. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it softly. I have been trying to be respectful, to give you time and not rush you into anything you were not ready for. But I cannot pretend anymore, Faye. I have fallen in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, and Faye felt as if her heart might burst from her chest. I love you too, she said, the words coming out in a rush. I have been so frightened to admit it, even to myself, but I do. I love you, Isaac. He stood and pulled her gently to her feet, wrapping his arms around her. Faye rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart, and felt a sense of peace and rightness wash over her. This was where she was meant to be. This was home. Isaac tipped her chin up with his finger and looked into her eyes. May I kiss you? Yes, Faye breathed. His lips met hers softly at first, then with growing passion. Faye wrapped her arms around his neck, losing herself in the kiss, in the feel of his strong arms around her, in the knowledge that she was loved and wanted and safe. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. Marry me, Faye. She pulled back to look at him. What? I know it is fast, he said. I know we have only known each other a few months, but I also know that I do not want to spend another day without you in my life, not as my housekeeper but as my wife. Marry me, Faye. Let me give you the home and family you deserve. Tears streamed down Faye's cheeks. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, Isaac, I will marry you. He kissed her again, and this time there was joy in it and promise and the beginning of forever. They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Tonopah Junction. Isaac's sister traveled from Virginia City for the wedding, along with her husband and their baby daughter. The sister, whose name was Margaret, embraced Faye warmly and told her she was exactly what Isaac needed. I have never seen my brother look so happy, Margaret said as she helped Faye dress for the ceremony. You have given him something to live for beyond just the ranch. He saved my life, Faye said quietly. I was so lost when he found me, and he gave me not just a home but hope. That is Isaac, Margaret said with a fond smile. He has always had the biggest heart of anyone I know. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Faye wore a dress of white lace that Isaac had ordered specially from San Francisco, and she carried a bouquet of late-season wildflowers. When Isaac saw her walking down the aisle, his eyes filled with tears, and Faye knew that whatever hardships lay ahead, they would face them together. The townspeople threw them a reception at the town hall, and even Catherine Bennett attended, though she left early with a pinched expression on her face. Faye danced with Isaac until her feet ached, and then they rode back to the ranch under a canopy of stars, husband and wife. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, and Faye fell asleep in Isaac's arms feeling more content than she had ever thought possible. When she woke in the morning to find him watching her with love in his eyes, she knew she had finally found where she belonged. Life on the ranch settled into a new rhythm. Faye still kept house and cooked, but now she also worked alongside Isaac when he needed an extra pair of hands. She learned to care for the horses, to mend fences, to recognize when the stock needed attention. Isaac taught her to ride properly, and soon she was galloping across the rangeland with her hair streaming behind her, feeling wild and free and alive. The first winter was harsh, with heavy snows that kept them housebound for days at a time. But Faye did not mind. She and Isaac spent long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other or simply talking. They shared their dreams and fears, their memories and hopes. Isaac told her about the day his father died, how he had felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a mantle. Faye told him about the guilt she still carried over leaving her aunt behind with her violent husband. "You could not have saved her if she was not willing to be saved," Isaac said gently. "You can only save yourself, Faye. That is all any of us can do." In the spring, Faye discovered she was pregnant. The joy on Isaac's face when she told him was something she would remember for the rest of her life. He was immediately protective, insisting she not overwork herself, though Faye laughed and told him she was not made of glass. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she reminded him. "I am not going to break." But Isaac could not help fussing over her, and Faye found his concern endearing rather than annoying. As her belly grew round with their child, she watched Isaac build a cradle in the barn, his hands careful and sure as he shaped the wood. He was going to be a wonderful father, she knew. Their son was born on a warm October evening in 1883, with Margaret there to help with the delivery. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Faye thought she could not endure another second of pain. But then she heard her baby's first cry, and everything else faded away. Isaac wept openly as he held his son for the first time, and Faye felt her heart expand with a love so fierce it was almost painful. They named him James, after Isaac's father, with the middle name Thomas after Faye's father. He was a healthy baby with Isaac's dark hair and Faye's gray eyes, and from the moment he drew his first breath, he had both his parents wrapped around his tiny fingers. The years that followed were full and rich. Faye and Isaac worked the ranch together, building it into one of the most successful operations in the county. They had 2 more children, a daughter named Emma, and another son named Samuel. The house was filled with laughter and noise, with muddy boots and toy horses scattered across the floor, with the smell of baking bread and the sound of children's voices. Isaac proved to be everything Faye had known he would be as a father. Patient and kind, firm but fair, always ready with a hug or a word of encouragement. He taught James and Samuel to ride and rope, and he was surprisingly gentle with Emma, letting her follow him around the ranch and answering her endless questions with the same seriousness he would give an adult. On their 5th wedding anniversary, as they sat on the porch watching their children play in the yard, Isaac took Faye's hand. "You ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Staying here instead of going to San Francisco like you planned?" Faye looked at her husband, at the threads of silver just starting to appear in his dark hair, at the lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun, at the strong, capable hands that had held her and comforted her and built a life with her. "Never," she said firmly. "That day you found me at the cattle trough, you did not just give me water and a home, Isaac. You gave me a future. You gave me love and family and purpose. You gave me everything I needed, even when I did not know I needed it." "I think we saved each other," Isaac said, pulling her close. "I was just going through the motions before you came, Faye. Working and sleeping and working some more, but not really living. You brought light back into my life. You made me remember what it felt like to be happy." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over their land, their children playing safely in the yard, the horses grazing peacefully in the pasture. It was not always easy, this life they had built. There were hard winters and dry summers, sick animals and lean years, the constant worry that came with running a ranch and raising a family. But there was also joy and love, and the deep satisfaction of knowing they had built something lasting together. Years continued to pass in a blur of seasons. James grew tall and strong like his father, taking naturally to ranch work and showing a gift for training horses. Emma inherited her mother's quick mind and her father's determination, and she could outride and outrope most of the boys in the county by the time she was 12. Samuel was the quiet one, more interested in books and learning than in ranch work, and Isaac and Faye made sure he had access to whatever education they could provide. When James turned 18, Isaac made him a partner in the ranch, recognizing that the boy had more than earned it with his hard work and dedication. Emma declared she had no interest in marriage and wanted to help run the ranch too, which both amused and pleased Isaac. And when Samuel announced he wanted to become a teacher like his grandfather Thompson, Faye cried tears of joy and pride. Life was not without its sorrows. Margaret died in childbirth when her fourth child came too early, and Isaac mourned his sister deeply. A particularly harsh winter killed half their cattle herd, and they spent a lean year rebuilding. There was a bad fall from a horse that left Isaac with a limp he would carry for the rest of his life. But through it all, Faye and Isaac faced everything together, their love deepening with each passing year. On their 20th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a party at the ranch. Friends and neighbors came from all over the county, and the celebration lasted late into the night. As Faye danced with Isaac under the stars, she thought about the terrified, desperate young woman she had been that day in Tonopah Junction, willing to drink filthy water just to survive. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked, sensing her shift in mood. "About how far we have come," Faye said. "About how different my life turned out from what I expected. Better or worse?" Isaac teased, though his eyes were serious. "So much better," Faye said. "Better than I ever dreamed possible." Isaac spun her gently, and Faye laughed, feeling young and carefree despite the gray in her hair and the lines on her face. This was happiness, she thought. This moment, this man, this life they had built together from nothing but hope and hard work and love. As the party wound down and their children said good night, Isaac led Faye out to the porch where they had spent so many evenings over the years. The stars blazed overhead, brilliant and endless, and a soft breeze carried the scent of sage and horses and home. 20 years, Isaac said wonderingly. "It seems like yesterday and forever ago at the same time." "I know what you mean," Faye said, leaning against him. "Sometimes I can still feel how scared I was that day, kneeling beside that cattle trough thinking I was going to die, and then you appeared like something out of a dream." "I am no dream," Isaac said with a smile. "Just a cowboy who happened to be in the right place at the right time." "No," Faye said firmly. "You were and are so much more than that. You were my salvation, Isaac, my second chance at life." "And you were mine," Isaac replied. "I was half alive before you came, Faye. You brought me back to the world of the living." They stood together in the darkness, holding each other close, and Faye felt the same sense of rightness and peace she had felt on their wedding night all those years ago. This was where she was meant to be. This was home, this place and this man and this life they had created together. The years continued their steady march, bringing new grandchildren and more silver hair, quieter days and earlier bedtimes. James married a woman from Virginia City and gave them 3 grandchildren. Emma never did marry, but became one of the most respected horse trainers in Nevada, running that part of the ranch operation with skill and determination. Samuel became a teacher in Carson City, and the pride Faye felt every time she visited his schoolroom and saw him shaping young minds the way her father had done made her heart swell. Isaac's limp grew more pronounced with age, and there were days when his joints ached too much for heavy work. But he never complained, and he never stopped working alongside whoever was available, whether it was James or Emma or one of the ranch hands they now employed. Faye's hands grew gnarled with arthritis, making fine needlework difficult, but she still kept house and cooked meals that brought the whole family together on Sundays. On a warm evening in the spring of 1903, Isaac and Faye sat on their porch as they had done countless times before. They were both in their 60s now, their hair completely gray, their faces lined with the years. But when Isaac took Faye's hand, his touch was still as gentle and loving as it had been that first night during the thunderstorm. "You remember what I told you the night I proposed?" Isaac asked. "You told me many things that night," Faye said with a smile. "I told you I wanted to give you the home and family you deserved," Isaac said. "Do you think I succeeded?" Faye looked out at the ranch, at the house they had filled with love and laughter, at the land they had worked and tended for over 2 decades. She thought about their children and grandchildren, about the life they had built from nothing but hope and determination and love. "You gave me more than I deserved," Faye said softly. "You gave me everything, Isaac, everything and more." "Then I can die happy," Isaac said. "Not for a very long time yet," Faye said firmly, squeezing his hand. "I am not ready to lose you. You will never lose me," Isaac said. "Even when I am gone, I will still be here. In this house we made a home in the children we raised, in every sunset we watched together, and every morning we woke up side by side. I will always be here, Faye. I promise you that." Tears streamed down Faye's cheeks, but she was smiling. "I love you, Isaac Lawson, from that first day to this one and every day after. And I love you, Faye Lawson. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." They sat together as the stars came out, holding hands and watching the night descend over their land. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of Emma clattering around in the kitchen, preparing supper. James and his family were expected any moment for their weekly Sunday dinner, and Samuel had written that he would be visiting next month with news about a woman he was courting. Life continued its steady rhythm, full and rich and good. There were still challenges ahead, still hard days and sad moments. But there would also be joy and love and the deep satisfaction of knowing they had done it right. They had taken the broken pieces of 2 shattered lives and built something beautiful and lasting. Faye thought about that desperate young woman at the cattle trough, and she wished she could go back and tell her that everything would be all right. That the tall cowboy with the kind eyes would not just give her water and a home, but would give her a reason to live, a purpose, a family, and a love that would sustain her through whatever life brought. But she could not go back, and perhaps that was for the best. Perhaps the young woman she had been needed to walk that hard road to become the woman she was now, strong and sure and grateful for every blessing life had given her. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked, as he had done so many times over the years. "About how lucky I am," Faye said simply. "About how one moment of kindness changed everything." "It changed me too," Isaac said. "That moment I saw you at that cattle trough, something in me recognized you, not as someone I knew but as someone I was meant to know, someone I was meant to love." "Fate?" Faye asked with a gentle smile. "Maybe," Isaac said, "or maybe just the universe putting 2 lonely people in the same place at the same time and hoping they would be smart enough to hold on to each other." "We were smart enough," Faye said. "Yes," Isaac agreed. "We were." As the last light faded from the sky and the first stars appeared, they heard the sound of wagon wheels on the road. James and his family arriving for supper, bringing noise and laughter and life. Emma called from inside that the food was ready, and Isaac and Faye stood slowly, their bodies protesting the stiffness of age but their spirits still young. They walked inside together, hand in hand, just as they had walked through life together for over 20 years. The house filled with family, with love, with the sound of grandchildren and good food and stories being told around the table. This was what it was all about, Faye thought. This was what that desperate moment at the cattle trough had led to, not just survival, but a life worth living. Not just a home, but a family. Not just water to sustain her body, but love to sustain her soul. As Faye looked around the table at the faces of the people she loved most in the world, with Isaac sitting beside her smiling at something James was saying, she felt a gratitude so profound it brought tears to her eyes. She had been given a second chance at life, and she had made the most of it. The evening wore on, and eventually James and his family headed home. Emma retired to her room to read, and Faye and Isaac were alone again. They prepared for bed in the comfortable silence of long marriage, moving around each other with practiced ease. In bed, Isaac pulled Faye close and she rested her head on his shoulder as she had done for thousands of nights before. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness. "For what?" Isaac murmured, already half asleep. "For stopping me at that cattle trough," Faye said. "For offering me fresh water and a real home, for loving me, for giving me this life." Isaac pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Thank you for saying yes," he replied, "to all of it." They drifted off to sleep together, hearts beating in synchrony, their lives so thoroughly intertwined after 20 years that neither could imagine existing without the other. Outside, the Nevada night spread vast and beautiful over their land, over the home they had built, over the legacy they would leave behind. And if anyone had told that desperate young woman at the cattle trough in the summer of 1882 that this would be her future, she would not have believed it. But it was true. Every beautiful, impossible, wonderful bit of it was true. The story that had begun with such desperation had become a story of hope, of love, of two people finding each other when they both needed it most and building something that would outlast them both. It was a story written in the dust of a Nevada ranch, in the laughter of children and grandchildren, in the steady, enduring love between a cowboy and the woman he had saved, who had in turn saved him. It was their story, and it was complete.